Tony Blauer, welcome to Dad Edge, my friend. Good to see you again.
It is so good, and I gotta tell you this. I'm more excited that your son is here.
Yeah, what's up, Ethan?
No offense, Dad.
No. He actually, you give a lot of life to the show, whether you know it or not. Like people get bored, I'm sure, of hearing me. But just for the audience here, real quick, Ethan, just share with these guys. I know you were just on not too terribly long ago, but share with these guys how old you are and why I had you on today's podcast.
I am 15 and I wanted to be on the podcast because I just have some questions for him.
For Tony, yeah. Cool. And you'll have better questions than I have, so that would be great. But Tony, let's get started with you, man. I am just completely I'm totally curious about how did you grow up and then obviously evolve into what you're doing today, which is, helping people overcome fear, as far as your martial arts skills. I mean, I know this has been like a lifelong part of your life, and obviously super meaningful. You're inspiring other people to take care of themselves, to defend themselves. But what was it like for you growing up?
Yeah. So I guess we got another family member there.
Yeah.
We have 6 dogs. I should bring them in here.
6.
Yeah. My wife collects dogs, apparently. The kids grew up and she said, no more kids, but let's get dogs. So we're at 6 now. It's crazy.
That's a lot of dog.
Yeah. It's a lot of dog shit too.
Yeah.
It's funny because if you just read, let's say my bio, working with, tier 1 military groups, SWAT teams, law enforcement, combatives, pro fighters. And then you hear, oh, Tony developed his own system, this behaviorally based approach to self-defense, a system on understanding how to weaponize the startle flinch. If you read all of that, I think for some people, there's this assumption that I grew up in like the shittiest part of the world and, had to fight to survive every day. And it wasn't like that. I grew up in a really typical suburban area in Canada. Almost no violence. The schools were safe, not crazy like they are today. I grew up in just for just kind of anecdotal reference, I'm 61 and I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Like that was, 10 and 20 years old. A couple of skirmishes here, bullies and stuff like that. But I was never surrounded by violence. Having said that, I was always afraid of fear. And this is an interesting way to think about that, because everyone's afraid of fear except for the unicorns in the world, right? And like X game athletes, and we all know some anomaly human where the guy does something, you go, oh my God, what did you just do? And you go, come on, let's do it, let's jump off this rock, and you're like, whoa, like we all know somebody like that. And what's interesting is we're attracted to that courage. And an interesting distinction, you might remember this from the talk where we met, is people who thrive on adrenaline like that very often don't have the same relationship with fear that we do. Mm-hmm. So like I've got friends that like base jump, skydive, and they love it. And while there's an element of fear management to it, they don't have the fear we have. So it's not really a courageous thing for them to do their 700th jump. I'm going jumping today. Do you want to go? No, thank you. Right. So it's an interesting thing. And I know I'm often like a little tangent. You asked me about my childhood, but I want to draw this back to this idea where it was only, you only really understand your life looking back. And I look back now as I develop more and more of this whole, we've got, 3 divisions in my company. One's a scenario training component. One is teaching physical self-defense. And the other is this whole mindset vertical that kind of like evolved organically. As I realize now, oh my God, had somebody taught the program that we teach now to me as a kid, my life would have been different. So I was afraid to compete as a wrestler. I was afraid to compete as a skier. I was afraid to compete as a tennis player. I was an all-around athlete. I was good at all this stuff. And like if I was practicing, you'd go, oh, he must be the captain, or he must be, he must have like 10 medals. Look at him go. And then when I would get to the event, I'd be like, oh, fuck, I can't do this. Oh shit. Like I'd be like, but there was no one to talk to about this. And I also think today that there's no one to talk to about it. I don't think people understand. That's one of my things is like when I train trainers and coach coaches, like one of the things I'm metaphorically grabbing them by the shoulders, it's like, you need to get your athletes, you need to get your son to understand that a certain type of vulnerability turns into strength. There are people that, again, if you go too far with vulnerability, now you're like, it's like a pity party and you're trying to get people to help you do everything. But the vulnerable, for me to look at you and go, hey man, I am super scared right now. And I say that to you, let's say as a father, a guardian, a mentor, a coach. My hope and my dream is that my coach has something wonderful to say that's going to make me do what I need to do scared. And that was the big thing. So I grew up, normal workaholic father, very, very strict mother. I mean, it was the 60s. It wasn't like everyone gets a medal now, and it was, hang on one sec. One of my dogs, hey, Archer. I just saw one of my dogs floating around there without a leash, without a human attached to him. It was like, what? And so I was afraid of school. I was afraid to ask Lucy to the prom. I was afraid of, I was super, like I was good at school. I just didn't like school. Right. And so I wasn't a dumb kid, but if the class didn't interest me, I'd get a C or a D in it. If the teacher was a coach, I'd get an A, right? Because they made the learning important and fun. But so on a subject that I knew, if I showed up to class and the teacher said, okay, books on the floor, pop quiz, I'd bomb that because the fear would just unravel me. So I guess the message in this little, 10-minute rambling of what was it like growing up, suburban, athletic, traveled a lot, but like anytime I could be afraid, like if you said to me, hey, there's a shadow over there, I'd be like, where? Like, what do you mean a shadow? Like I was just afraid of the unknown, and nobody ever explained just how to think about, lean into, and manage fear.
So, and yeah, explain to us what is actually the psychology of fear? Like what exactly is going on for us? I know at the Squire, you had this beautiful diagram that I literally copied it word for word. I wrote it all down as it was up on the screen. So I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense.
Was that the cycle of behavior, the long one?
Yeah, the long one.
Scenario, fear loop. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting story how that came together. But so like most people, when you mention the word fear, someone will go, that's an emotion. And then if you go, well, talk about it. Well, it's connected to like cowardly behavior. And I disagree with all of that. And again, you can be anal, dogmatic, contrarian, and semantically say we're talking about the same stuff. But most people, when they like at an academic level, when people talk about fear, they talk about fight or flight syndrome. They talk about parasympathetic systems versus sympathetic nervous system, and fears and emotion and blah, blah, blah. And because, and I guess this is important, to talk about, my deeper revelation, my epiphany, big fancy word for light bulb moment, of fear was because I was teaching real violent self-defense. We were teaching like if Fight Club were a self-defense program, that's what we were doing in the 80s, right? So it was like we would do these scenarios, we'd put on equipment, and we'd really hit each other. We'd film the stuff back in the day on VHS and analyze it. And I always built scenarios. It wasn't like, hey, let's spar. It was, okay, you go stand over there and these two guys are going to come up to you and they may be drunk. They may be bullies. They may try to mug you. You don't know yet. You got to figure that out. So it's really interesting. So we created all this synthetic fear, and then there'd be like a fight. But because you weren't tapping gloves in a ring and jumping around like you're sparring, it revealed like all these other factors that are never really blended in martial arts and self-defense classes. And in that study from 1980 to 85, 86, because I developed the cycle behavior, the chart that you referenced around 1986. I was trying to intuitively as a coach, try to like, figure out how do I improve your performance? Like, you look like shit there and that sucked and you didn't do really well. And so this, I recognized that it was an element of fear because you could see it over and over again. And so I didn't state this as eloquently in the 80s as I do now, because now it's decades later and I thought about it and I teach it and I coach it and I mentor. But there were two things that came out of that. One is the people who managed their fear managed to fight. Like that's huge. And I could apply that to finances, relationship, health, violence, right? If you manage your fear, you manage to get in the fight, whatever it's going to be. And then the second one, which is one of my favorite lines, is you can't be brave if you're not afraid.
Right.
You can't be brave if you're not afraid. And so it was suddenly this like, wow, that was like a weight off your back, where if you realize, okay, I'm avoiding doing this. I'm avoiding having this hard conversation. I'm avoiding getting in the ice bath. I'm avoiding defending myself, whatever it is, the doubt and hesitation, which is brought on by the fear spike, creates the procrastination. And if you don't have the self-awareness to realize that you're avoiding something that if you do it is somehow going to make you tougher, smarter, more resilient, better. But if you avoid it, it actually makes you weaker, because what you're doing is you're strengthening avoidance. And that's so subtle. And so it was like this huge, like almost like like fireworks in my mind when I had the realization. It was like, wow, we all, like, if I said to you, do you want to be brave whenever you're called upon to be brave? Like, who would say no? Like, we all want to be courageous. We all want to be brave. But no one ever said to me growing up, you need fear to manifest courage. Therefore, you need to be afraid in order to be brave. And if you just remember that all the time, you're about to do something, jump off a diving board, ask somebody out on a date, punch somebody in the face, whatever you got to do. And you're like, your heart's pounding and this is if we go back in time to me growing up, and the wrestling coach would say, hey guys, remember, we've got the meet Saturday. I want everyone to be at the school at this time. We're taking the bus there, this and that. As soon as he it was like, okay, this is go time, even though it's in 2 days from now or whatever, my physiology would start to change. And then getting to the school and like, but externally my facade might've been high five, how you doing? Let's go. Let's kill him. Let's go. Right. But inside, my heart's pounding, my butterflies in my stomach, my palms are sweating. But coaches still don't know how to draw that out of the athlete. How do you feel? Because if you can just acknowledge it, and if somebody just put their hand on your shoulder, and sometimes it has to be yourself in life, it's okay. You're supposed to be afraid right now. What you're about to do is outside your comfort zone. You've never done this before, or you haven't done this enough times. Ethan, have you played on stage? How good are you? Are you in a band?
No, not yet.
Okay. Do you want to be?
Yeah.
Are you good enough to be?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, you're humble. Listen, when I was taking guitar lessons, I had this kid. I should make you like play some riffs right now. But when I was taking guitar lessons, I had this guitar instructor named Mark. And Mark was a stay-at-home dad. His wife worked in the medical community, or a teacher. I can't remember now. This is back like 100 years ago. And Mark I'd go, hey, did you hear this new song? Did you hear this solo? And he'd go, this one? And he'd just start playing. I go like, dude, like it just came out on the radio yesterday. He could just hear it and he could play it. Well, he was a studio musician. He played on like tons of famous I used to live in Montreal, and there's a very famous studio. The Police, Sting, like a bunch of big bands would go record there. And Mark had played like studio sessions, for some of these guys. He was that good. And I said to him one day, because I'd go pay him for a private lesson, and then I'd make him play songs, and I just sit there watching him like this. Like it was just gorgeous to watch him move, right? And I said to him one day, dude, why aren't you a rock star? And he answered me, he said, I don't do drugs. I don't like parties. I don't like kissing ass. So I'm just not going to fit in. So, I'm happy. I give guitar lessons. I play in the studio. I raise my kid. And I thought that was a really cool answer. And this was like in the 90s, right? And as I grew up, and I hadn't developed the whole no fear system then and everything. And I thought about this later, maybe 10 years ago, because I know people who go to parties in LA, musicians, actors, they don't do drugs. They don't stay out till 3. They don't cheat on their wives. They're just good people, but that's their purpose. That's their thing. And I realized that who wouldn't want to be can I swear on your show?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or not to.
You already have, but you're good.
Right. Who wouldn't want to be a fucking rock star? Why wouldn't you be a rock star? And what I mean by rock star, I don't mean an asshole. I mean like somebody who inspires thousands of people to listen to music or pick up an instrument. That's why I picked up an instrument. I saw a guy. I was your age, Ethan. I went away to camp, and I hear somebody playing "Smoke on the Water," and then I hear somebody it's just like this grungy guitar, and I walk into and there's this one guy on stage, and there's 8 kids standing around like this, and he's just there. He's just playing shit. And I looked at the way everyone looked at him, and then wanted to talk to him, and I was like. And it wasn't about manipulating behavior. There was just a power to that. And I went, I want to be able to do that. And I picked up the guitar for ostensibly the wrong reasons. I got into the music, and I wrote a ton, and I played in some bands and shit like that. But if you said to me, would you like to be a rock star, travel around the world, have people screaming and yelling, inspire. Anyways, all of this long, story to say, my guitar instructor, I think, was afraid of the temptations of that type of power. And that's where good mentoring, that's where going through the Squire program, going through the project, having like a cool dad that's doing what he's doing with you right now, getting to talk to hopefully someone like me, where you go, oh yeah, integrity, transparency, courage, fear management. When someone says to you, hey man, let's do these drugs, and you go, no, hey man, let's do this crazy stupid shit, and in your heart it's stupid. And then when people get in trouble because of peer pressure, that's actually poor fear management. When somebody does something stupid, drinking or driving or making wrong choices in life, if we peel the onion all the way down, it comes back to my self-awareness in relationship to managing fear. Before every type of accident, I believe our intuition whispers in our ear, and we shut it down. I've spoken to so many people that have been in crazy situations, and all of them almost exclusively said, I knew something bad was going to happen. I knew something bad was going to happen, but they didn't know how to stop it there. So that's that whole fear loop. Is you get a fear spike, and you decide, how do I choose safety here? What is a smart play here? And that's all fear management. So again, I got so many rabbit holes. You started the questions like talking about the psychology of fear. The short answer, the Reader's Digest answer is this: is when I was teaching people how to manage violence, I realized that you can't manage violence without managing fear. That the mind navigates the body. You need to manage your fear first before you can go. And then I got sidetracked because I saw the guitar, and I know Ethan loves the music. I mean, I can remember literally going to watch this pretty famous local guitarist play, and I'm there, and he knew me, and I'd taken lessons from him, and I thought I was I still think I'm a shit guitarist compared to the people that I look up to. But I'm sitting there, and the guy goes, "Hey, my friend Tony's in the audience, and I'm going to try and get him to come up here and play a solo soon." And I went, "What?" Like I thought I was going to throw up. And I quickly started ordering shots of tequila. And he ended up dragging me up there, but I went up because I was drunk, and I have no idea what I played. And I think everyone was drunk. So it was okay because they didn't know how bad it was. But I was so scared. And Ethan, I say this to you, like if I had understood how to breathe, how to focus on, like I tell people, like, the mind navigates the body. So if you can't control your fear, you're not going to control your fingers. If you can't control your fear, you're not going to control your nonviolent posture, right? So like the mind navigates the body over and over again. And I mean, this is huge. I literally, you heard me say this when we met. And this is kind of like my mission now is, and that's why I'm so excited to be on your show, is to get parents, to get dads, to get like anybody, like we change the world if we teach our kids what courage and fear looks like. And it doesn't look like what's in the movies. It doesn't look like what we assume. When we see a rock climber or a base jumper, or, you guys, of course, know the answer to this, but if I show you a picture of Mike Tyson knocking somebody out, and I go, yeah, 15 minutes earlier, he was crying in the dressing room, throwing up. You're like, if you don't know that as a fact, because you're not a boxing nut, you go bullshit. If I tell you, hey, George St. Pierre, like one of the greatest MMA fighters ever, if you asked him, was he scared when he fought? He goes, the worst day of my life is fight day. But what both of those guys did is they managed their fear and flipped the switch when they stepped into their office to work.
I remember you talking about Mike Tyson when you came to do your presentation as the Squire, because that I grew up in the 80s. So I was a huge Mike Tyson fan. In fact, everybody in junior high, we couldn't wait for the next Tyson fight and all that. And to hear that, I was like, wow, that's crazy. But
right,
I'd really love for Ethan to take. I have no idea what he's going to ask you, but I just kind of whispered to him. I was like, hey, you got the next question. So
nice.
What you got for Tony?
Hit me, man.
So track season starts Monday, and we have our time trials in late March. And I'm really scared that so we do these races for sprinters, like the 100 and then the 300. And I'm worried that I won't get into the 100. So.
Okay. So
world.
What's that?
I said I didn't know he was going to go that route, but that's a real world question. That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So one of the things that there's a whole bunch of things that I can tell you. So one of the things is, remember the weight of fear slows you down. So you're not going to run as fast as you can if you've got the weight of fear. If you've ever been waiting for test results, medical test result, you're waiting, you get your x-rays done at the dentist, you got something that's bothering your tooth, he says, let's do some x-rays, and you're waiting, or you're waiting for a test at school, and you're like, oh man, if I fail this test, I got to go to summer school, right? Or something like that. And then you find out that everything's okay. When you find out, we got someone else here.
This is what happens. So in San Diego, where it's 60 degrees right now and it's 19 here, where they're called off school. So we have my 6-year-old bombing the show right now. So yeah,
Nice.
that's just good. For those of you guys on YouTube watching us, this is Colton.
Colton, what's up, dude? He can't hear me, of course.
But yeah, just keep going.
Yeah. So Ethan, there's a metaphor I tell people that there's a weight of fear. So when you're waiting for pass fail, you're waiting for some sort of stressful news. Like if someone said, "Okay, guys, I've got the names of the 5 guys that are going to go on, to be part of the track team. The rest of you, thank you for trying out." Like everyone's sitting there doing this, right? And then when they call the 5 names, people are like, right? So what happens when you get good news? We always stand up, right? Did anyone ever notice that? And so I've identified that, and I go, fear has a metaphoric weight. You win a lottery and you jump up like you got lighter. And it's not because you won the lottery, it's because you went, oh, now I can pay this bill, or I can invest in this, or I can lend somebody some. There's this weight. And so I want you, the first thing I want you to think about is that fear has a weight. And you will not run as fast as you can if you're carrying that weight. But fear is also an imaginary weight. So if you remember in the talk, I always say that for you to be worried about the 100, it's because you're visualizing something, tripping, false start, disqualified, being slow, whatever it is. But all of these are like little movies in your mind. And you need to remember our acronym for fear: false expectations appearing real. False expectations, meaning it's an erroneous visual, but I think it's real because I'm sitting here going, yeah, I just lost. I didn't do this. I was late, whatever. So you need to go, well, why am I imagining a future event that hasn't even happened? And if you can sever that or eliminate how long you spend kind of like thinking about that, you get back into like real time, right? Does that make sense? So, if you're like, that's how I almost won every ski race, but never did, because I would always visualize skiing out of control or catching a tip, or, I'm probably not going to win again. Like I'd visualize the negative. And I would ski with the weight of that, and it just slows you down. Think of unnecessary fear as, those little parachutes they have for runners to create resistance. That's you. You're going, but this is like fear, and it's behind you. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to miss my turn. The next thing I want to tell you, and this isn't in order of importance, is who cares, Ethan? Like, who cares if you don't make the team? You want to, it's cool. But it's not going. If I said to you, you want to be a track star, you want to be a rock star, what would you pick?
The rock star.
Really? You don't want to wear shorts and run around a track the rest of your life? And there's nothing wrong. Listen, right? With a guitar.
With a guitar,
right? And I'm sort of making fun here, but it's putting in perspective. And I'll give you an example. Like I got 3 kids. One day I noticed my daughter's like really freaking out, Olivia, and I'm like, "What's up?" She goes, "I can't do it. I can't go to school. We got an oral presentation today." And I'm like, "Olivia, you know your material. So if you focus on the fear so much, you forget your speech that you memorized, or you forget to look at your cards or whatever, because you're just thinking about the wrong things, right? Okay, this first note, don't screw up this first note. Don't screw up this first note. Oh shit, I missed the whole guitar, right? Like, because you're thinking about the wrong things." I told her, and the subtext here is I'm telling you this, and hopefully your dad agrees, but I'm going to say it, so too late, is like, who cares if you don't make it? What matters is, did you try? To the best of your ability, were you giving the best of your ability, right? And it's only after you can go, you know what? I need to change my nutrition plan, or I don't really understand energy systems, or, I pulled my hamstring on this, and geez, I don't stretch properly or warm up properly, whatever it is. You look at somebody's filming and you realize my start is much slower than everyone else's. I'm fast when I get going. So, but you're not at an elite level where a coach is going, let's just work on your start. You know what I'm saying is like there's specific things that can make you faster. But where I'm going here, and again, I'm just like trying to throw magic dust here, is like erroneous fear. And what I mean by erroneous fear is like I'm afraid I'm not going to make it. Who cares? Let go of that. Now you're going to run faster if you can just embrace that. That made you faster. If you just go, it doesn't matter if I make it or not. Now, if someone said, hey, this is the Hunger Games. If you don't make the team, we're killing you, right? And you go, oh, yeah, okay, that's a problem. But guess what? If that were true, you still need to manage your fear, because now you're in the Hunger Games, right? So reduce your fear by eradicating like these erroneous, distracting thoughts. Should you have like anxiety about the event because you want to do well? Yeah, that's normal. No coach ever told me that. You're supposed to have butterflies in your stomach. Your breathing is going to be more shallow than if you were like falling asleep to your favorite album, like versus getting up to do a race. But nobody ever tells kids or athletes this. Other things that I can tell you.
Real quick, can I interrupt?
Yeah, please.
I think this is where the majority of people get things like totally confused. So the fact you said this at the Squire, but the first time I ever heard the statement that I'm about ready to share with you that you teach was from a Navy SEAL who came on the podcast years ago, and that is the feeling that you actually and you said this during your presentation, which is there is really no absence of fear. In fact, you have to feel fear in order to
be courageous.
Yeah. So being courageous is not the absence of feeling fear. It's actually taking action despite the feeling of fear.
Correct.
And this is where I think a lot of probably maybe even coaches like, what are you scared of? Don't be scared. Like, don't be a wuss. Right. And but I think if we were to reteach kids and adults too, like I remember, like, I love your no fear because I also grew up in the 80s where there was NO fear, right? That was like
the t-shirt company. Yeah.
And it's so misleading because like, it's fascinating to hear George St. Pierre, Mike Tyson, all these high level people that are like, yeah, I was absolutely freaking terrified. Right. And to just embrace that is like, that's a human feeling. However, I'm going to teach you how to navigate those feelings and have the ability to display your courage despite those feelings of fear.
Right.
So I just think it's beautiful, the road you're going down, because
Thank you.
it's so misleading if people do not know how to teach it and people don't truly understand the courageous and fear, aspect of it.
Yeah, no. And I'm glad you spotlighted that and highlighted that. It's that don't be a pussy, don't be a wimp. Come on. And the whole no fear.
Set of balls.
Yeah.
Right.
And listen, there's in very specific circumstances that may be the right thing to say to your kid, to your colleague, to your partner, because you know each other so intimately that that like time is ticking, and that statement is going to make them go, you're right. Yep. Right. So it's like, it's very specific. But it's used most of the time at the wrong time. So like, you can't legislate and guilt people into doing things. And it's almost that's almost the effect that if I look at you and I go, man, you're acting like a freaking wimp right now, wipe your fucking tears and get up and go there. And now the person goes, okay, you're right. But then, and there's two things going on there. One is, you are perpetuating the need for that codependence. In other words, you're not teaching any independence because you're not teaching people how to self-coach themselves through something, right? So you're chastising someone into performance. right? And and like there's just so many things wrong with that. And that doesn't mean we need to be everyone gets a trophy and don't worry, it's okay. And some people might even misinterpret the whole idea, like who cares? And that's what I ended up. I never finished saying with my daughter, and I'm trying to coach her. And I said, Olivia, it doesn't matter if you don't do well in this. Yes, it does. I could fail. Hey, you're 11 years old. If you don't do well in this, first of all, you're funny as shit. You're articulate. You're eloquent. You captivate people. Like when we have family over or we're out, people like you can stand in front of a crowd. You have no problem speaking. What you are is afraid of getting up in front of your class and being judged because you're going to get a mark. And it's completely different things. So let me tell you this. I don't care if you fail school. I don't care if they give you an F in this class. I love you. I think you're funny as shit. And I think you speak really well. Right. And she just kind of like looked at me, and it's weird. Like my daughter is 24, sent a picture this morning what popped up in her memories. I said, wow, you're so beautiful. She goes, oh my God, look at my dress. I'm so ugly. She says, I'm going, honey, you're beautiful. Like people need to hear that. And she went and she did the thing and she did, I don't even remember. She did good. She did okay. But it was like hopefully some of the reinforcement of like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, I've made mistakes on notes, Ethan. I'm doing a solo and I'm like, oh shit, I just hit the wrong note. You know what I do right away? Can you guess what I do right away? I'm going, fuck, that was the wrong note. That sounds like shit.
Keep going.
Yeah, but I do something very specific. I play the mistake again. And now everyone thinks it's part of the song. It's just like one of those weird asymmetric, and I'm like, oh fuck, and it, play with that because it's it's a lifesaver, and it's a psychological trick. And I obviously I don't do it all the time, but if I can, I'll just stay there, and eventually it just blends in. But the philosophy behind that is it's only a mistake if you freak out about it. Right? So I don't know. I'm getting a little metaphysical here. Let's go back to your track thing for a second. I had this female athlete that I was coaching. And I don't think I told you guys this story. Her name was Natalie. And she had this, it was kind of like a functional fitness competition, like CrossFit-esque type stuff. And she'd been like a track athlete for over 10 years, high level. She calls me up. She says, listen, I heard you specialize in fear management. And she goes, I got a meet coming up on Saturday, and it's Wednesday. Usually Thursday night, the fear sets in. I don't sleep well for 2 nights. I don't eat well. And obviously I can't perform at my best if I'm not eating and sleeping well. Can you help me? I said, well, tell me a little bit more. And she goes, well, she starts explaining. She goes, the feeling I get, like I dread the fear so much, like I feel like I'm going to die. And I said, really? She goes, yeah. I said, and you've been a competitive athlete for how many years? She says 10. And I go, and have you had that feeling for like 10 years? Yeah. As soon as I started competing, I said, I can relate to that. That's how I was. I said, but you said something very specific. You feel like you're going to die. That's how much you dread it. She goes, yeah. I said, so in the last 10 years, how many times have you died? And she goes, what? She goes, I said, how many times have you died? And she laughs like you guys smirked. She goes, well, never. I go, like, then think about it. What a stupid thing that is to say. Like, so here's what I want you to do is I said, when does the fear hit? She goes, Thursday. I said, so wait for it. And then on Thursday, you're going to start to feel it in your body somewhere. And I want you to jump into it, lean into it. And I want you to go, oh, there you are. And I want you to just talk to it. As weird as this is, say, there you are. And go, come here, you little fucker. I've been waiting for you. I mean, I actually started talking about you Were your ears burning? Because I was talking about you yesterday. And she's like, what? I go, yeah. I go, make friends with your fear. Make friends with your fear. And she's like, well, I said, like, watch an old movie, read a book. She goes, what? I go, tonight, when you're freaking out with fear, say, hey, listen, normally we don't eat, but we're going to eat a little bit. And normally I can't sleep, and that's okay. You want to keep me up? Let's watch an old black and white movie together or read an old classic. I said, just try this, Natalie. And she calls me like the next day and she's like, holy shit, I fell asleep. So like a lot of times what we do is we resist it so much. It's like, I no fear, no fear, no fear, more like, what is the fear going to do?
It's going to build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so that was the whole like epiphany for no fears. Like, what if I decided to get to know my fear? And that became that, what if I make fear, my fuel? I'm using it as energy now to do what I got to do. So it's really, and one of the things, if you haven't read it yet, did you read the ebook, Making Friends with Fear?
No, I haven't read it yet.
Yeah. So we'll get you the link to that. It's 9 pages long, but I joke that it took me 43 years to write it, and it's probably my most succinct, most important ideas around fear, of that, the psychology of fear versus, go back to the question you asked me nine hours ago, talk to me about the psychology of fear. There's the physiology of fear. There's understanding the neurobiology of fear, right? Oh, this system releases this biochemical that does this, and we feel this. But the reality is, in the moment, if I'm being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, or I've got a bully at school, or someone says, hey, Nathan, the track coach is looking for you. He said you're supposed to, your time trial's up now. No, he told me it was at 2:00. Well, they're calling you now. Fuck, what do we, like, that shit happens, right? And then we lose our focus. So that example there is, your body changes, anticipation, anxiety, physiology changes. But I always made this joke when people would talk about fight or flight and all that, the physiological changes. We don't have buttons on us to go, yeah, I need a little bit more adrenaline, too much. Oh, hold on a second. I pull this little button here and it releases this anxiety. No, that's all there. And you are who you are, partly with how you were raised, what your experiences were, what your, and so on and so forth. What you can modulate in real time is what you're saying to yourself. So if somebody's like, I'm freaking out, and I grab them by the shoulder and I go, look at me, look in the eyes, take a deep breath, hold it for a second. Okay, breathe out, count to 4 with me. 1, 2, and I get them into box breathing, and they regulate like some of the breathing that Aaron and the team were teaching you guys. Like, that's the coaching, that's the voice. But if I'm not there, or your dad's not there, who's going to coach you? So the big thing is, we need to teach ourselves, and as parents, we need to teach our kids, how do you coach yourself? Because the fear spike they're going to get in a fight, in a test, in a sudden decision with peer pressure, they're about to start their race, or they're prepping for the trial. Now it's like, fuck, I wish Tony was here. And how do you go, okay, you're the coach, can't be brave if you're not afraid. Those who manage their fear manage the fight. Fear can be fuel. I'm making friends with fear. Fuck fear, face it, understand it, control it. Now I know it, let's go. And listen, I was coaching a CrossFit athlete, this guy, Jeremy Kinnick. He'd gone to the CrossFit Games 5 times. I mean, that's insane. Like, just high level. And he wasn't even one of the best, but to get at that level, to be in the CrossFit Games 5 times, and one day he fails a snatch, which is an Olympic type of Olympic lift for people who don't know. He he fails a snatch with a weight that he warms up with, and he gets disqualified from moving up. It's a ladder, and he comes out, and I went, dude, what happened? Like, that's a weight that you warm up with that weight. And it was the final day on Sunday inside the tennis stadium where there's like 12,000 people. And he says to me, he looks at me and he goes, hey, coach, you know what? I realized today I'm not afraid of the weight and I'm not afraid of the competition. I'd never been in the tennis stadium. Like, the games had gotten bigger and bigger, and now they were at the Staples Center. And now just when he walked out, he was like, oh my God. Right. So it's to be the difference of, like, you're sitting on your bed working on a solo, and then, now you're practicing with some friends, and some girls and guys walk in, and but you know them. So you're kind of showing off a little bit. And then one day someone says, hey, play at the school dance. And now there's 400 kids there. And you're like, holy shit, this is different than the basement. And what people forget is that's the fear spike, because now you're visualizing screwing something up in front of a big crowd. And what I always tell people is, the tunes you already know, the skills you had, right? So when you go to run next week, you already know how to run. You're not going to become a better athlete between now and next week. What's going to change between now and next week is how you think. And if you can manage that, mind navigates the body. Now you can move. So there's not a it's not like step 1, step 2, step 3. It just kind of comes at you like irons in a fire. Remember this, do this, think that, and then you go for it.
So I have a question and I think this example is stellar, by the way. It's stellar for the dads who want to hear this for how kids maybe view this, right? But also, what I want to put men in the position to think about is, like, listen, this is your presentation in front of your executive board, right? This is, you approaching the next new customer that you're so nervous about. This is you wanting to go have a conversation with your wife that you've been dreading, or, your kid who is about ready to, perform on the track and field of that day. So when it comes, and I didn't think we were going to go down this road of this whole, and I love it, by the way, this whole codependent thing. Well, if Tony's not here, if this person's not here, if dad's not here, if my coach is not here, what do I do? Like, I'm helpless now.
Right.
Which I think is one of the biggest disservices that we can do as coaches, is like, hey, I not only want to coach you and teach you while I'm here, but I also want to coach you and teach you when I'm not here.
Right.
So going back to this example where Ethan's like, okay, like, I got my time trials today, and I've seen you run so many times. And by the way, I love watching you run, but I also know that probably it's like when you and your crew are kind of like getting ready, get that final race before you is finishing up, you guys are over on the sidelines. I'm sure that's when things, from what you've told me, that's when things are kind of like getting really, really visceral for you and that kind of thing. And then you're about ready to walk up to the line and you're like, oh man, we're about ready to go. Right. So from a self-coaching aspect, it's like, so we've gone over like, oh, there you are. Yeah, I see you, fear. Like, okay, we're friends with it now. I get you. I see where you're at. What's the next step after the knowing it? Like, I know the acronym, right, is face it, understand it, control it, know it. But from a self-coaching aspect, what does that look like? So for him to be on the sidelines, ready to run his race, and then maybe going through his head, like, yeah, I feel it. Here it is. What did they do next?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm not going to give you an answer that you're going to like, or maybe you'll love it, but you won't like it. It's different for each person. And if it's a one size fits all, I mean, the world isn't for nutrition, for coaching, for eating, for try this, you're going to love this. What do you mean? How could you not like that? Right. So it's everything. Everyone is different. And the athlete needs to find out what works for them. And then, so for example, let's say you find out, Nathan, what works for you. And now I called you Nathan, Ethan. Why did I just say Nathan? Who was I thinking about there? What works for you, and then you go to like your next school, right? So now you're in college, and you try out for the team, and they make you. But it's a coach with a whole different style. But let's say you're doing really well. This is fear management. Would you go up to that coach and go, "Hey, listen, this is how I love to be coached. If you want to draw the best out of me, I mean, I'll work my butt off for you, but this is how I love to be coached." Like, no one ever says that, right? Like, you don't tell a coach how to coach you. Do you understand where I'm going with this? Is like, if you have the self-awareness to know, I respond best for this sort of stuff. And I do that with my team, my company. I do that with my wife. I go, like, if you want to manipulate my behavior in a positive way, these are the things I respond to. If you do this, I get my back up, or I get defensive, or I sulk, or whatever. And I'm just letting you know, because if we're working as a team, I want to be optimized. That's the self-awareness that I can create that. So a story that I tell, and I'll come back more directly. I interview fighters and warriors over the years, and I'm looking always for psychological threads they're great stories when I'm coaching and teaching, but they also validate my theories. And a lot of my theories you don't find them in books. In fact, I've lectured and talked to psychologists and psychiatrists, and they're like, "Where did you get this from? This isn't from..." My favorite quote is from a professional psychologist. He after studying my system, he goes, "Hey, this is more effective than anything I've learned in 20 years of psychology." And I said to him, "Holy shit, can I use that as a quote?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's true." And I'm not a psychologist, right? It all comes back to that I observed and then created language to explain what I observed, teaching people how to fight. My hypothesis was the worst day of your life will be the most dangerous day of your life. And that would be somebody randomly, suddenly, violently attacking you. Theoretically, and someone contrarian can say, "Well, no, this." I go, "Listen, you're hanging out. Nobody wakes up and says, I hope I'm like randomly, violently attacked today, right? I want to practice my resilience." No, nobody thinks that way. So my whole approach to managing fear was born and inspired out of studying violence. And if we can agree in theory that managing violence is the most important thing that we could do, because other stuff, if I say to you, "Hey man, you got 5 days to let me know about this business deal," and then it's off the table, you can be scared and nervous and worried, but you have 5 days. When someone goes to attack you, they're not going, "In 5 days, I'm coming back here and I'm going to finish this." You're like, it's happening there. You got to manage. So I had this hypothesis that if I can get people to manage their fear for sudden violence, then can't they manage their fear on a cold call, on a sales call, on an oral presentation, on a track and field meet? I can prepare, I can think. So fast forward, I'm talking to Maurice Smith, who was a UFC heavyweight champion, a K1 fighter, one of the best Thai boxers in the world. And I said to him, "Hey man, whenever I get a chance, I interview fighters about their pre-fight ritual and their relationship to fear, because I wanted to hear all these different things." Believe it or not, this is part of the answer for what am I doing just as I'm walking up to get ready for my race. And so I said to Maurice, "What do you do before fear? How do you deal with fear?" He goes, "Let me ask you a question." I said, "Okay." Thought I was interviewing him, but okay, you're interviewing me now. He said, "Do you have a job?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you afraid to go to work?" I go, "No." He goes, "Me either." I go, "What?" I go, "Holy shit. Like, that's so cool." But imagine Now here's a guy that's been fighting for 20 years and it's his whole life. And maybe unlike me, he grew up fighting in the streets and he'd be in jail or dead. Now one of those guys, if he didn't find fighting and it saved him, and now he's just really good. But imagine if you decided you were going to start fighting and you entered a competition Friday night, it's your first fight. You'd be fucking nervous as shit. But if I said to you, remember what Maurice Smith, you have a job? Yeah. You afraid to go to work? No, don't be afraid. You're just going to go to work now. Okay, thanks. I think, okay, like that's not going to help you because it just makes no sense for you. And so the message here is this. I've been in like UFC locker rooms and there's the guy like Maurice who's like got headphones on and he's like sitting back, like listening to, his favorite music. And then there's somebody else punching their face, walking around, somebody else who's, when your legs going 100 miles an hour, like you're on a sewing machine, somebody else on the bench. And that guy on the bench who's going like this, like this, that's maybe his first to fifth fight. And the guy walking around, punching his face, shadow boxing on his own, that's maybe his 10th or 11th fight. The guy who's totally cool and chilled out, maybe it's his 12th. And so your pre-fight or pre-event rituals mature as you do. And the big mistake that coaches, mentors, teachers, and it goes back to what you said, man, where, you look at someone, you go, come on, man, fucking grow some balls. Let's go. Like we give them like language like that. And a lot of times if you're moving or you're scary enough, intimidating enough, or, what's at risk of non-compliance, they start moving, but they're not performing. So again, not the answer that you're maybe hoping for. It's like, oh, just do this. Remember this little trick. You need to figure out what are the things that help me lean into that, right? And it may be, and that's why like I created the acronym Fuck Fear, right? Because swearing is a lot more, what's the word? It's just ubiquitous now everywhere. Like it's all over the place. Like t-shirts, coffee mugs, like you see it everywhere now, where when we grew up, if if someone said fuck somewhere, it was bleeped out.
Right.
You're warm, right? It's like the world's totally changed. So I do this for me. And a lot of people think because I study fear and I'm this fear management expert, that I have no fear, like the NO fear. And I go, I have fear every day. I worry about my kids every day. I worry about business. I worry about the world. I worry about, like, I see something in the news. I'm like, fuck, I don't believe how they're weaponizing fear everywhere. And so remember, fear management is the concept. We're managing fear. We're not eliminating fear, because nobody goes, geez, I need more fear right now. Pass me that bottle of fear. Like, we don't know, like, you don't want it. So when you have it, you need to use it as a gasoline. So you might, be shaking out, getting ready to go, and you go, let's fuck with fear, man. Now that doesn't work. Okay. Hey, make fear your co-pilot. We're driving. I'm going to go. Fear's my gasoline. I'm nervous. I want to do well. Okay. Fear's getting, no, that doesn't work. Like, you find out what it is that works for you. It might be an expression. It might be a type of movement. It might be music. I do the most important thing that I can tell you is to cultivate the self-awareness of when you feel your body feeling that change. And then instead of going, oh shit, here it comes, it go, yeah, I was waiting for that. Customato, who trained Tyson, by the way, he has a really good quote, and it was up in the Squire thing. I don't remember, but paraphrasing, it's like, you can use the flame, the heat of the flame, to cook your food and to warm your house. But if you don't control that flame, it can burn your food and can burn your house down. So you want to learn to feel. My metaphor on that is that I go, hey, you're up. And you go, right away, your heart starts to race. You get butterflies in your stomach. Instead of going, and this is what I did as an athlete, nobody ever explained to me that those feelings were supposed to be there, because I was about to do something challenging or dangerous or risky or, right? It's a competition. No one ever said, like, if any of my coaches had ever said, do you ever get butterflies in your stomach, sweaty palms, and kind of vertical, shallow breathing? I'd have looked at them and said, yes, I fucking hate that. Oh, no, don't hate that. Lean into that. Suck that up. That's freaking energy. Consume that. If they had said that to me and I tried that, and you don't master it right away, but that's what George St. Pierre does. That's what Tyson does. Right? That's like otherwise they wouldn't leave the locker room.
That makes so much sense, man. And I love that, you know, you're really humanizing the feeling of fear, which a lot of us view that as, well, if I'm afraid, then I'm just weak. But what you're saying is I love the co-pilot reference of like, oh yeah, there you are. You ready to go? Because you're going to help me here. You're going to help me with this blast of power before I jump off this starting line to do my 100-meter dash. I'm curious though, as we wrap up here, I'm curious, Ethan, just from your point of view, like I thought this example, I didn't think we were actually going to spend the whole show talking about that example of a track meet, but I'm so glad we did.
Yeah.
But just from you and what you got from this, take us to the point where you're going to now do the time trial, and you know that your time trial is coming up, like on that day. In fact, you're in your uniform, you're on the track. Now based on what Tony has kind of taught us here, what's on your mind now?
Well, before I start the race, I would be like doing some breathing exercise, probably like jumping up in the air, just get my body ready. Like sometimes I'll even like tense up my whole body and then just relax.
Yeah. But as far as even and which I love that, by the way, as far as I know things that are super important to you, right? Things that you want to be good at, things you want to perform at. I also know as human nature, which by the way, is super normal. We've talked about it, is that you tend to put a lot of pressure on yourself, like almost like performance pressure. Like, man, if I don't do good in this, then it's going to lead me to here. But what's your perception of, actually, let's even talk about that event in particular. What's your perception of that event, like your time trials now?
Like if you're visualizing it, do you have the same, has any of the info or discussing the fear changed how you're visualizing that going?
Does it feel almost more like you have more control?
Yeah.
And well, let me ask you this: if that feeling of fear were to rise up, 3 minutes before you hit that starting line, what would you do now based on what Tony has given us advice on?
I would like do what he said, like kind of like enjoy it or something like that. Use it as like your fuel or energy.
Yeah, just like embrace it, man. Like remember the fear. So there's two parts. There's one is the movie, and then the other part is the feeling in your body. And people not confuse them, but they mash them together. So they go, oh my God, I'm not going to make the cut because I'm not going to run so fast because I'm going to screw this up here. And then I'm going to let everyone down. And that was me as a skier. And me thinking about that would give me anxiety. And the anxiety was going to be there anyhow, because I was getting ready to compete. And I would confuse the anxiety with the visual, with the movie in my mind. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so I think about that, and then I go, and this is the biggest thing. When we look at courageous, or like, let's say, we look at the again, look at St. Pierre doing a Superman punch, into Matt Serra's face, and we go, wow, I wish I had the courage of St. Pierre, right? Not knowing that like 10 minutes before he was going, what am I doing? Right? Tyson hitting somebody with a body shot, not realizing 10 minutes before someone said, you want a Kleenex? And he's going, yeah, okay. He's crying in his locker room. What am I doing? So I want you to really think about this for next week, that whatever feelings are in your body are supposed to be there. It's what you're thinking in your mind. That's the movie you need to change if it's negative, right? So that's that idea that I'm the movie producer, I'm the director, I'm the screenwriter, and I've now cast myself in a movie where I lose, as opposed to a movie where I do my best, or a movie where I win, right? And just literally have fun with it. So like your dad said, like, what do you like 3 minutes before you get this big adrenaline dump? Now, unlike me, or this is the question I used to say to myself, if I'm so good, why am I so scared? Like people go, hey man, you're a really good runner. You're a really good skier, Tony. Thank you. When's your next race? Saturday. You know, you're going to win? Man, I hope so. That's why I'm training. And then I'd get there going, why do I feel so scared? Why do I feel? And I would confuse the adrenaline in my body with skill. That's, if I could grab every coach in the world and shake them, right? Like, you need to get your, and when I say coach, dads are coaches, moms are coaches, not just sport coaches. You need to get your athlete to understand the difference between the physiology and the psychology. The psychology's got to support the physiology. And that is just teaching people, like, these feelings are supposed to be here. And they can shift, or like I said, you know, your first, 1 to 10 events, you're going to feel 10x. And then, if you keep going, your body adapts to it. So you don't get that same emotional, psychological reaction to it. Does that make sense? The more you do it, it's called adaptation. Your body stress inoculates to it. But throughout all of that, it's the self-talk. So now you're walking up, you get the butterfly, and you go, oh, there you are. Gotcha. Okay, remember, you're my fuel, right? We're in this together. How do I know that? Because you're in my body and we're running. So you're with me. And how can I, in that metaphor, my mind is my navigation system. My body is the vehicle, and my fear is my fuel. And now you're going to take off.
Just to make this super simple, the images that keep popping up in my mind is that if we don't know how to manage fear, and because in the very beginning of the show, you called it weight, it's like you having that 20-pound vest that's sitting over there on top of you, that could be fear, right? But if you know it, like, oh, there you are. And it's like literally taking off that weight and then somehow packaging it up into like your Red Bull, slamming it. And then you're like, boom, let's go. Right. And you're taking off the weight, and now it's your fuel. That's like, to me, that seems like such an easy switch. Is that pretty accurate?
It's great. And I want to add something to that that's very subtle, but very important for anybody listening. And ironically, you used a weight example, and I didn't know you had a 20-pound vest there, because I use this example a lot, because I've coached a lot of athletes who do Murph, the famous Murph workout with the vest. And I would tell them, I go, have you trained with a vest and without a vest, push-ups, squats, run? And almost everybody has done running, push-ups, and squats without a vest, but only a handful of athletes, given the population of the world, have done it with a vest. And so I go, what's harder, with a 20-pound vest or without? And people who've done both go, well, obviously without. And I tell them, and this is actually like right out of our seminar, your fear is like a vest. And if you weren't a cop or in the military, you don't know how to put a vest on the first time you put it on. And the first time you put a vest on to go do Murph or any workout with a vest, you put it on for sure too tight, because you don't know. So you put it on, you cinch up the Velcro, and you're like, and maybe you're standing there like doing your pre-workout picture, and you got your vest on too tight. And then you go to run and you start to move, and you forget that right now I'm calm. But if I started to push my aerobic capacity and challenge it, my body wants to do what?
Breathe.
Now I'm doing big breaths and my chest expanding, what have you. Well, if you've got a heavy vest cinched to you, your chest can expand. And now suddenly it's like if you're in a jiu-jitsu class and you got somebody lying on top of you, you start to panic because you're not breathing fully. So I always tell people, and this makes much more sense to somebody who's trained with a vest. I go, inexperienced people with a vest, put it on too tight. And now they're suffocating, they're panicking. They're like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And so what happens is if you adjust your vest after you've already started to panic, you put it on too loose invariably. And now it's bouncing around while you're running and you can't get into a flow state. You're distracted by this because now it's hitting you in the throat, it's choking you, it's distracting you. Again, the vest is fear as a metaphor. The fear is too tight, it's suffocating me. The fear, I'm too loosey-goosey with it, it's smacking me around, it's distracting me. But at some point you stop and your intuition says, okay, this is where it needs to be. And then you get going and now you're running with the vest, but you've gone through the panic and the adjustment, and now you're running with it, so you've accepted it. So the only thing I wanted to add there, which I think is it's deep and subtle, is there are events in our lives where we must wear our fear properly. In other words, there's no way that we can go through it without fear. I'll say this to you, Ethan, there's no reason for you to have any fear next week because like it's nobody, like if you come in last, we're shooting you, right? Like the Hunger Games, right? So it's like, now you can go, man, it just means a lot to me. I love track and field. I want to be on the team. I promised myself I would do it. But guess what? If everyone beats you and you ran your ass off, then it just wasn't your race. If you showed up late, you didn't take it seriously, you didn't practice, you just like were cocky about it and you lost and you knew you could do better, you can get pissed off at yourself and because you've let people down, most importantly, you let yourself down. But if you run your ass off and then the people beside you are faster than you, then guess what? You should be rooting for them and being inspired by them going, I'll get you next year or next season or whatever it is. Wow. And that's what great athletes do, right? You know, so in terms of like danger and fear, and what I mean, like if you had to defend yourself, you're not supposed to not have fear. So now you've got to fight with fear, right? So I just want to make that add because it's very, very subtle. There are lots of things that when I learn, I can't be brave if I'm not afraid, that the primary ingredient in courage is fear. There were certain events in my life that I'm supposed to be afraid. And I need to use my fear as an asset. And then there are other events where I'm going, that's ridiculous. Why am I overthinking that? And I've got to have the self-awareness to kind of separate those two.
Man, this was awesome. Did you enjoy it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did too. This was, we went way down the rabbit hole of what fear is, how it shows up, what we can do with it, how we can actually make it our partner and friend. I have loved this. I just want to make sure the audience can find you and everything that you're doing. I know just getting to know you very, very briefly on this show and at the Squire, I've really enjoyed the connection to you and what you teach, but where can men find you and everything that you're doing?
Well, I'm severely shadow banned online, because I'm apparently, you've heard my message, I'm a threat to humanity. But you know, if you're on Instagram, I'm at Tony Blauer. If you can find my page, you're probably got to type it in. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the places as my name, and most of those sites will have links to my website. If you want to see what my company does, we've got 4 verticals there. Go to blauertrainingsystems.com. My last name Blauer, Blauer, trainingsystems.com, and hopefully my office sent you a bunch of links to some stuff that you can post. But I always tell people, start off, read that 9-page Making Friends with Fear, because you might just read that and go, whoa, and that light switch comes on.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey guys, not to worry. We're going to have all of Tony's links in the show notes, so you don't have to go far. All you have to do is remember this, thedadedge.com/363 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/363. Tony, Thank you so much for coming on today, man. This was awesome. Ethan, as we wrap up here, is there something specific you want to thank Tony for?
I just want to thank you for the advice. I feel way more confident now.
Thank you. Well, keep thinking that over. Read this weekend, Making Friends with Fear.
Yeah.
9 pages, take you 10 minutes. And when's your race, or when's the tryouts?
I think March 15th.
Okay. But you got something happening next week too?
I have my first day of track on Monday.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Have fun with that, and actually literally lean into that metaphorically, and lean into that, because you can't run fast leaning backwards. And please let me know how you do. Seriously. Get my info from your dad and send me a message.
Okay.
Sure will, man. Thank you so much. I got to say, as we wrap up here, Ethan, I'm 46 years old, and some of the things we learned today, I learned quite a bit from it. I wish I was 15 and have learned what I just learned, because it was amazing. It would have saved me so many frustrating days and performance anxiety issues with sports and tests, and even going up and asking a girl to prom, things like that.
Same with me, man.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt and inject this one thing here. And I love this concept for dads. Kids won't relate to this as much, because when kids are young, they just think like time is whatever, right? Like, I'm 61 now. My daughter sends me this picture where I can't even I'm like, holy shit, have I gotten old? That's like, and I'm like, whoa, when did this happen? And it occurred to me, and I do this with the adults, because they can relate to this, that fear management, understanding fear management, actually equates to time management. That when we are in the fear loop, we are consuming time in a negative way. We're worrying about things. But if you develop the self-awareness to go, wow, I just got a fear spike, what am I worried about? And then you start doing your fuck fear acronym: face it, understand it, control it, get to know it. I get my first rep in. What I've actually done, you just say, like, how much time you wasted procrastinating, and what you said is exactly how I feel. If somebody taught this to me when I was 7, 10, 15 years old, it's okay to be afraid, but you got to do this. Go ask her for the date. Get in the race, put your hand up, go. You create those reps, you create that confidence. And what you're actually doing is you're practicing courage.
That's right.
And I can't think of a more important skill that every person could benefit from that.
That's right. Get your reps in with courage, right? Despite fear. So, yeah. Tony, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much again for coming on. You bet. And hey, guys, like I said, go to thedadedge.com/363 for the show. We'll have all of Tony's links in there for you if you want to connect with him. But Tony, I really appreciate you coming on today. This was awesome.
Thank you. Anytime. And if you get some good feedback or questions, you want to go down a rabbit hole, my mission at this chapter of my life is to get the No Fear program out to parents. Because literally the future of the world is that guy to your right, to my left, and the rest of your 6-year-old. Do you have other kids?
Yeah, I have 4 boys. He's my oldest, 15, 14, 8, and 6. So you saw the bookends today. You saw the oldest and the youngest today.
Yeah, but aren't they the future? Right?
They are.
It's
they absolutely are.
It's a cliche. They say that, but if we teach our kids how to look differently at fear, their lives are going to change.
Agreed. That's right. So not only do we learn this stuff in this generation of fatherhood, but we get to teach it. So, Gentlemen, it's all we got time for today. Go out, live legendary. Take care.